If the fence rests, let's lay it down. Gonna dig deep, wave that verdict round. The defense rests, time to analyze. With the evidence, we'll unveil the crime. Justice served in an honest fight. True crime tales till the verdict's right. Solving more than just trivial quests, where sentences rule at the defense rests.
If we start at 11, and if you're going to Thursday, we're going to Thursday, the other night, we'll just have to stop there. Does that work for your schedule, Mr. Tiffany?
It does, because my only concern was.
All right, welcome back. Can you hear me?
Out of state starting February.
Why haven't I got sound on here?
Oh, okay.
Why? Why is it so?
All right. So whenever you get back here, we'll start a little bit on everybody.
It's because it's muted. Idiot. One button I forgot to press.
And that's for Wednesday.
Wednesday. All right, Jim, so Wednesday afternoon, we've got intro.
Nope, now I'm getting echoes.
There's more you and I want.
Okay, and I'm not sold to that, so
Oh.
I'll be here.
I don't expect that will be very long, sort of a scheduling thing.
Right, it was up for Saturday, so.
Okay. All right, and that's great, okay. All right, with that, do you have a witness here?
That was a quick turnaround.
Kevin Robertson.
Lucky I'm organised. All right, now I'm going to set this one up to support us to the next one. Should we need it? Or when we need it later. Cast 3 on the go at once. Glutton for punishment, are you? Subscribers are in the chat. Okay, and I'm set.
Good morning. Could you please state your name?
Kevin Robichaud,
And could you please spell your last name for the record?
Robischeau.
And by whom are you employed?
Currently Coastal Ambulance.
And what is your position with Coastal Ambulance?
I'm a shift commander for the company.
And how long have you worked for Coastal Ambulance?
They just recently bought from Transformative about 3 years ago. So for that company, 3 years, but it was a succession from Fallon Ambulance to Transformative to Coastal. So I've been with the same company for over 30 years.
For over 30 years. So what year did you start with Fallon Ambulance?
97.
And do you have any particular training with regards to your employment at Fallon Ambulance and Transformative, which is now Coastal?
I'm a paramedic. I'm a senior paramedic in the company. I'm trained in ACLS, pediatric advanced life support, cardio, CPR,
And could you explain for the court what is ACLS?
advanced cardiac life support.
And drawing your attention back to January 28th of 2020, were you working for Fallon Ambulance on that day?
Yes, I was.
And what was your position with Fallon Ambulance back on January 28th of 2020?
I was a field training officer
And what did your duties include as a field training officer?
to observe our third person that was with us and to make sure that he was competent to work as a paramedic.
And at some point during your shift on January 28th of 2020, were you dispatched to 40 Meadowbrook Road in Brookline?
Yes,
And can you tell the court what time were you dispatched to 40 Meadowbrook Road?
we were dispatched at 2308.
At 2308?
Yes,
And what time did you arrive at 40 Meadowbrook Road?
2309.
And was there a patient at 40 Meadowbrook Road that you treated?
Yes,
And what time were you at the patient?
2310, I believe.
And after treating that patient, did you transport that patient to the hospital?
Yes, we did.
And what time was the patient transported to the hospital?
2336.
Now, can you tell the court who was the patient that you were treating at 40 Meadowbrook Road on January 28th of 2020?
I believe his name was Andrew Savitz, if I'm pronouncing it correctly.
And can you tell the court when you arrived at 40 Meadowbrook Road, what happened?
We were updated by the fire department, Brookline Fire Department, that the patient was in cardiac arrest. So the three of us, myself and my partner and a third person, we carried up all our gear and went and found him laying in the hallway in
And,
cardiac arrest.
and when you saw the patient laying in the hallway, what did you do?
We initially started CPR, ventilating the patient and assessing the patient see what was going on, putting him on the cardiac monitor, seeing what rhythm he's in, doing IO access, administering medications, the life-saving medications, and we defibrillated him as well as giving him medications.
So can you explain for the court, what is cardiac arrest?
Cardiac arrest is when the heart stops and he's not breathing.
Well,
And how would you describe
Technically,
his breath,
well,
if any, when you
cardiac arrest is when they're in a non-life sustaining rhythm. So ventricular tachycardia would be considered that.
arrived at the scene?
There basically was agonal breathing, which is like the last breath before someone totally expires. It's not effective breathing, but they're usually making some sort of almost like a gurgling sound.
It's called
And-
chain
and
stoking over here.
How many respirations does a person have when you're
14,
describing agonal?
Usually less than 6 a minute.
And how many was this patient having?
Without referring to my report, I'm
You
not
can go
sure.
ahead and look at it.
Thank you, ma'am.
While you're-
Oh, yum. Yum. Stop it, you're making me hungry.
In my notes, it says just agonal, so it was less than six a minute.
And so when you saw that the patient was having these agonal breaths, what did you do?
We started ventilating for him, but we had to clear his airway because he had a large amount of vomit in his airway.
You cleared his airway because of the vomit,
Yes.
and then you started respirating?
Yes.
And what were the results of that?
Still did not stop breathing. His heart actually stopped in the interim of all that time frame, where we continued with CPR. After we suctioned him, we put what's called a laryngeal mask airway into him to help ventilate him.
What is a laryngeal mask airway?
It's a
Something
supraglottic
that
airway
keeps
that
your
helps ventilating the
airway
patient so
open.
the air goes directly to his lungs instead of to his stomach.
And
I'll sit
what
on
was
one
the result
square.
of that?
Initially, it worked really well, but during transport, he vomited and he expelled
Oh,
the element out of his mouth, where we had to resuscitate him aggressively.
What other types of resuscitative efforts did you make with Mr. Savitz?
We defibrillated him once during the time frame. He was in ventricular fibrillation once. We shocked him
There
at
you
that
go.
time.
VF
we
arrest.
Started an intraosseous, which is a
Through the
drill
bone.
that goes into his bone, where we were able to administer medications, and we administered 5 rounds of epinephrine during that time frame.
Okay, so just going back, what do you mean by you defibrillated?
Defibrillation is an electric shock that goes through the heart to actually stop the heart, to hopefully that starts beating in the normal beating.
And how do you do that?
Well, we have pads that adhere to his chest, and we set a certain joules, and the monitor actually gives exactly what's needed.
And what kinds of medication did you give him?
Epinephrine.
And what does the epinephrine do?
Epinephrine it stimulates the
Increase
alpha beta 1
cardiac
and beta 2
output.
receptors, as well as increasing the vascular resistance in the body.
All right. So it basically draws all the blood back to the main circulation system, which is keeping it to your vital organs, your heart, your lungs, your brain. That's pretty much what that is.
As well as making the heart more conductive to an electrical shock.
And what were the results of those treatments?
When we initially shocked him, he went into asystole, which is basically total
And
cardiac
they're
transport,
flatlined.
and we continued CPR. And during that time frame, after that, we did get pulses back for a brief period of time. And it looked like he was having a heart attack at that point, an inferior heart attack at that point.
And can you explain what is the difference between a heart attack and cardiac arrest?
Cardiac arrest is you're dead, and a heart attack is that there's dying heart muscle.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I couldn't hear.
A heart attack is the heart is actually dying in the areas, and a cardiac arrest is that you're actually dead at that point, clinically dead.
And when you started getting the beats back, where were you?
I believe it was somewhere between leaving the scene and the hospital.
And how long did it take to get to the hospital?
We got there. I think we left the scene at 23:36. We arrived at the hospital at 23:43.
And what hospital did you arrive at?
Beth Israel.
And what was the condition of Mr. Savitz when you got to the hospital?
I believe we went back into cardiac arrest at that point.
And when you got to the hospital, what did you do with Mr. Savitz?
We transferred care to the doctors, the doctors and nurses in the facility, into the emergency room.
Thank you, Mr. Robichaud. I have no further questions.
If I may, before I start across this week, can I look at the report that you're trying to
Sure. So do you have the injury form?
Morning, sir.
Good morning.
You were there with a number of other personnel that were working with you, right?
Yes, sir.
And could you give me the names and give the court the names of those personnel?
I can give you my partners. I don't know the fire crew that was on that day.
Okay, just your partners.
My partner was Janet Looney.
Mhm.
She was my longtime partner at that point. And the third that we had, if I can look at my report,
Sure.
is Nicholas, which he doesn't work at our company any longer. So I don't really
Is it
remember him.
Nicholas Dragna?
Yes, that's him. He didn't last at our company that long, so I don't remember him.
So at the same time that you and your colleagues, those two colleagues were administering life support to Mr. Savitz, is it fair to say that other personnel from the Boston Fire Department were also helping?
Negative, it was Brookline Fire Department.
Brooklyn Fire Department, thank you. And it's fair to say that when you're administering this type of procedures to try to help someone, that there can be injuries that result from your efforts, correct? Is it fair to say that, if you know, that most of Mr. Savitz's ribs were broken in the process?
I would assume so.
Okay. And the ribs get broken as part of the attempts to administer CPR through chest compression? Am
Yes,
I
sir.
right about that? And when you talk about this process of, you said that you administered medication through a bone.
Mhm.
And is that the proximal tibia?
Yes,
And so you actually, you used the word drill,
it is a drill,
and you drill a hole through the bone,
a very small one.
Mhm.
and then you administer the medication through that.
Yes, sir.
And when you first saw Mr. Savitz, when you appeared, he had vomit around his mouth.
Yes, sir.
And is it fair to say that while you attempted to give him aid, that there were times when he excreted vomit again?
We cleared his airway before we actually started ventilating, and then we put the advanced airway into him.
Okay.
And then during the transport, he vomited again
Okay, during transit. he
when
vomited.
he expelled the element.
Tell us what the reference is to airway supraglottic.
Supraglottic is, there's different types of airway management. Supraglottic is where it sits in the glottic area of the throat, where endotracheal intubation actually goes into the trachea and secures the airway that way.
Now, is that what was applied to Mr. Savitz? then?
He was given the supraglottic airway.
Okay, so what that, I'm going to ask you to explain it, but if I get it wrong, but you're inserting a tube down his throat, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you're at the end of that tube, or as part of, not at the end of the tube, but as part of that tube, it has a large, I don't know how to describe it. Cuff. Okay. And then you have to apply air, right?
Mhm.
And you're trying to force air into his lungs. Is that fair to say? Or you're trying to expel?
You inflate the cuff to secure the airway, which is not going into his lungs. On top of the tube, there's a hole on top of the tube where you put the ambu bag, and you're able to inflate the lungs that way.
So while you're doing that, you're actually having to insert objects into his mouth, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you're not doing this, and I hope you understand, you're not doing this politely. You're doing it forcefully because his life's at stake. Is that fair to say?
No, because if you do it forcefully and incorrectly, you're going to lodge the tongue in the back of his airway, and you won't be able to put the supraglottic airway exactly in the right spot.
Well, what I mean is you're making sure that
All right, have a look at this. That's what they're talking about. All right, that just goes into the mouth, and the tubing basically pushes the tongue down, so it keeps the airway open, and then the AM bag, which I showed you pictures of yesterday, connects to that little hole there, and that's how you get the airbag oxygen in. Okay, that's what he's talking when he says the laryngeal tubing.
It's a blind insertion.
okay, it's a blind
Insert.
It doesn't really go anywhere.
and you don't
You take-
examine his mouth afterwards or anything for any injuries or scratches or anything like that. You're busy focusing on trying to get his heart to beat.
Basically, just to keep the tongue out of the way.
So, and then you said that you had to do that procedure a second time in transit.
I believe so.
Yeah, because he vomited.
And when you use the word vomiting, in your report, you use a different word, don't you?
Emesis?
Yes.
It's the medical term.
Okay, but
Yeah.
that's
The
what
same.
your report refers to. And when you applied the defibrillator, that requires a large shock, electrical shock.
It requires a shock. It gauges exactly how much it needs.
Okay, it
Yeah.
needs
Automatically set.
it actually can burn the patient, can't it?
Yeah, well,
If it was multiple shocks, usually yes. Or if it was applied incorrectly.
Do you have any
It's a
personal or
risky
professional
red
knowledge
tape.
with regards to Mr. Savitz, if in fact the application of that defibrillator resulted in burns on his chest?
I do not know.
Oh, you don't know? Okay. You haven't had a chance to, or any reason, to review the autopsy findings?
Absolutely not.
Did anybody ask you then, Mr. Robichaud, whether some of the injuries that were later noted on Mr. Savitz could have been the result of the life-saving procedures you and your personnel applied at the scene and later on had trained?
No one advised us anything.
You did get an ECG scan,
Mhm.
right? And did anybody ask you for that?
The hospital would have been attached to our report, which I don't see on this report.
Okay.
But it would have been attached to it, and they would have got copies of it.
So it's fair to say that a person like Mr. Savitz in these very difficult procedures can incur injuries as a result of your life-saving techniques.
Yes.
Thank you. That's all I have.
All right, Mr. Robichaud, you're all set, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right, so we did know going in today that it would be a very abbreviated day.
Right, so-
So Monday, we'll have the ER doctor and the medical examiner. Do you expect that you will finish with those two witnesses Monday morning?
Did they just say they're out of witnesses?
Does that sound right to you, Mr. Deputy?
If the Commonwealth will finish with them, if they say they will, I don't know if I'll be finished.
Okay, that's fine, I'm just trying to figure.
Sure.
Do we need to go a full day either Monday or Tuesday in addition to Wednesday?
Tuesday, if we could go full day Tuesday, that could happen.
I'm cognizant of experts who like to not bring them back multiple days if possible, right? All right, Jim, we'll try and do that
Yes.
Tuesday and then Wednesday if we have to. All right, if there are certain things we have to do, we'll take a break during the afternoon and do those.
Tuesday, no problem. Did you also say maybe Wednesday afternoon?
Maybe Wednesday afternoon. We'll do Miss Antonga-Toe's case.
Maybe not Wednesday. No, all right.
We'll figure it out. All right, so Monday will be a half day, Tuesday perhaps a full day.
Yes, and it's starting at 11 or
11 on
11:30.
Wednesday, 11 or so. So if everyone besides Mr. McGee could be here at 11, then we'll have more flexibility.
Just be special.
And maybe later today, you'll both be, or tomorrow, maybe just before I leave tomorrow, if you'll have the specific sections of the medical records that you want me to read to give me some context to reading everything else. All right, so today, tomorrow by 4 is fine. All right, thank you all. So we'll see you Monday morning.
Oh my God, really?
Guys, please.
Are you for real? That's it. That's it for the day. Oh my God. All right. Well, here we go again. That time lucky? Oh, no, I'm going to go back to where I was. Hang on. I was in the middle of typing at the end of this stream, but I don't have to now because it's this stream. All right, I might as well just tell everyone. Okay, we're going to end this. How long was the bloody thing? I can't even see a time. 25 minutes. Not even that, because the fan didn't start until, oh my Lord, so say that point there, 15, 20 minutes. All right, so from here, I'm going to teleport you to the next one, which is the Colin Griffith unaliving of mother with knife in the neck, accidentally fell trial. All right. I'll see you over there. Bye-bye.
Justice served in an honest fight. True crime tales till the verdict's right. Solving more than just trivial quests, where sentences rule at the defense rests. Justice served in an honest fight. True crime tales till the verdict's right. Solving more than just trivial quests, where sentences rule and the defense rests.